Hi, Lavonda. Thank you for joining. I am getting ready to start. I logged in about a minute late today. Let's see. I have some good stuff to talk about today. All right, let's get started. Today we are talking about the title of tonight's Let's Talk Tuesday is Me Time Countdown. What are the me time numbers? I had a few. Me time everything. Me time calamity, me time shame, me time all sorts of things. But that's what we're going to be talking about today. So my name is Samantha Edu. I am a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Georgia. I am a wife and mother of 3 young ladies in the making. So I had created this group, Ladies Raising Ladies, for a place for us, ladies who are raising ladies, just to come and be able to talk about just some of the things that go on when you're raising daughters. Some of the things that we talk about are just basic mental health things that women go through, and we can start to teach those to our daughters because the goal is to create generational mental wealth. And the only way that we can create generational mental wealth is by assuring that we are, hey Sadine, is by assuring that we are facing those mental health issues that have been passed down from generation to generation. We're stopping those issues so that they don't get passed on to our daughters. For our daughters, we are creating situations where they are communicating effectively, they have healthy relationships, and set boundaries for their daughters and their daughters and their daughters. So, ladies, we are creating generational mental wealth. Once again, my name is Samantha Edu. I am the owner and therapist with Therapy for Ladies. You can find my website at www.therapyforladies.com. Same with Instagram and Facebook. Now, let's get into these numbers. A few weeks ago, might have been 2 weeks ago, we were leaving church. And so on the way home from church, I was thinking to myself, so if you know me, you know what I do when I get home from church is take a nap. Like, I take a nap. It don't matter. When I get home from church, I take a nap. That Sunday nap is all of my whole Sunday. Like, I need it. So on my way home from church, I was thinking to myself, man, I need some time alone. And then, I don't know why, but that triggered these thoughts like, when was the last time, I was asking myself, when was the last time you were by yourself? And so I was like, 1, 2, I'm just counting, thinking these numbers. I'm looking, trying to figure out when was the last time I was by myself. And it just was like, what? I couldn't even remember the last time I was by myself. And so I asked my husband, how many hours are in a week? And so he was like, I don't know. I don't know how many hours are in a week. And I said, I need to know how many hours in a week. So mind you, now I'm on my way home, like looking it up, right? So I found out there are 168 hours in a week. Okay, it's some numbers here, so keep up with me. There are 168 hours in a week. About 46 to 56 of those are sleep, hopefully. And maybe if you might work 40 hours a week. I just use 40 hours. I probably work more than 40 hours because I bring work home. So we are left out of that 168 hours a week. We have about 82 hours a week, right? That's left over and we split that amongst ourselves, our family, church, side hustles, all that stuff, right? 82 hours. So once I got these numbers, I started texting. I was texting my friends. I was like, and it was so random, you know what I'm saying? Because I didn't have this blog post in mind. I didn't have the Let's Talk Tuesday in mind. I was just trying to see if I was on the same page with my friends. So I messaged them and was like, how many hours do you have alone a week? And, and they're like, girl, what you talking about now? But they told me, right? And so I came home and I started thinking about it, and I put it on Facebook, and I got more numbers, and I put it in Ladies Raising Ladies Facebook group, and I got some more numbers. So I had quite a few numbers, right? So when I figured that we had 82 hours a week, right? And this time, the 82 hours we can split between ourselves, family, church, hustles, side hustles, plan B, C, D, and E hustles, all of that, right? Now, I want you to see what I did right then. What I did was we split that amongst ourselves. I put myself first. I put myself first in here, but when I tell you those numbers in my little study, if you want to call it a study, because, we'll call it a study. I feel fancy. In my study, those numbers show that ourselves get the least amount of time. It showed that we, out of all the 82 hours a week, ourselves get the least amount of time. Guys, like for real. I found out, before I tell you how many hours alone the average woman gets, like, I could have asked, where does all this other time go, right? If we get the least amount of time, I could have said, where does all this time go? Where do you split your other time? But I didn't want to do that really because I didn't care. I didn't care if your kids got 80 hours. I didn't care if your husband needed 72. I didn't care. I didn't care if my husband needed 72. All I cared about at the time was, how many hours am I giving myself? What I found was the average woman working a job, running a business with daytime hours, or stay-at-home mom has on average, are y'all ready? This is crazy. 0 to 6 hours alone out of an estimated 82 hours a week. Did you hear me? 0 to 6. The average woman working a job, running a business with daytime hours, or stay-at-home moms have on average 0 to 6 hours alone out of an estimated 82 hours in a week. Sis, we have got to do better. Like 0 to 6 hours out of 82 hours. That is not including the sleep. That is not including work. And for me, I included my commute. Because I drive about an hour, about 2 hours or so, maybe 2 hours and 30 minutes a day to work. So I had about 10 hours, but I don't even count my commute because a lot of times I'm on the phone or I'm talking or I'm doing something. I'm thinking about work before I get to work. Hey, Missy, I'm doing all of these things and I don't even count those hours. So if I didn't count my commute, 0 to 6 hours. Good gosh, that is like so disturbing. I want to talk about why it's so disturbing. I want you to think about a time, okay? If you have the time right now, think about a time when you have felt your most creative, relaxed, inspired, sexually driven. Think about this time. Did any of these things come from a week where you were so busy that you could not recall the last time you were alone in that week? Okay, so I want you to think about a time when you felt your most creative, relaxed, sexual, your most inspired, and what was going on in that time? Does any of this flow out of an experience where your mind is racing, thinking about all the things and all the people? For me, no. These things do not come out of a week where I can't even remember when the last time I was by myself or had a thought that wasn't connected to work or my husband or my kids, where it was just about myself. What is today? Tuesday. Yes. Let's talk Tuesday. That's a shame. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I have not had that time yet, right? So this just makes me think, like, if you're not intentional about creating spaces in your life where you are alone, you will not have that time. Now, I'm not going to skip ahead, okay? Now I want to talk about three reasons why this is so important. 3 reasons why it's so important to have this time. The first reason is spiritual renewal, right? So many times when we feel down in our spirit, we feel disconnected with our higher power. We feel like we can't hear God's voice. Those times are usually born out of situations where we're not alone, either on purpose, right? Because you don't want people try to run away from an issue, so they surround themselves with people or surround themselves with things to do or things like that. So many times when we can't hear God's voice or feel, our relationship in our spirit, it's because we haven't had time to be alone with our thoughts. And when I say alone, I mean alone within myself. Alone where I'm talking to Samantha. I'm checking in on Samantha to see how Samantha is doing, not as it relates to anything else. It is me and Samantha having a conversation to see how Samantha feels and what Samantha needs. That is what I mean when I say alone. Because I can be alone in a room and be thinking about work, my kids, my husband, my church, my this, my that, my that, my that, my that. And I don't feel like I'm alone. I feel like I'm busy. And that's just 2 different things, right? So I guess I should have defined what alone means, because it does mean when you're alone in relation with yourself. So that's the first reason why having me time is so important, is spiritual renewal. The second thing is learning selfish behaviors. So I've said this before. People, when you say the word selfish, people have this negative, oh, that person's so selfish. There's a negative connotation to it. For me, selfish just means self-preservation. Selfish means to me that I'm caring for myself. Selfish means that I'm choosing me over this situation. And I feel like women have gotten this rap, or this is something, hey Tara, women have gotten this thing. I don't know if it's just passed down from generation, probably, or if it's just because in our relationships, or this male culture we live in, where we have to just be servants all the time. We don't get to be selfish. So the more me time that I intentionally create, the more I learn how to be selfish, right? So that's the second reason why me time is so important. The first one is spiritual renewal. You can't hear from yourself or God when you are surrounded by thoughts, and negative thoughts, positive thoughts, work thoughts. It's just hard to do that. The second thing is learning selfish behaviors. So when I create and when I intentionally create me time, I am teaching myself selfish behaviors. Okay, those are the behaviors that I need to implement so that I can take better care of myself. The third reason is creativity flows out of a place of peace and self-awareness. Creativity flows out of a place of peace and self-awareness. When I say creativity, I don't mean sewing, even though for me that's my thing, or artsy craftsy. That's not always creativity. Creativity just means finding innovative ways to show up in the world, right? That's what I mean when I say creativity. How are we able to find innovative ways to show up in the world, to show up in the spaces that we thrive in? It's really hard to do that when you are not operating out of a place of peace and self-awareness. How do we get to that place of peace and self-awareness? We get there by creating intentional me time, where we can talk to ourselves, hear from ourselves, really feel what we are feeling about a certain thing, so that we're clear on those things. That's how you grow, how you create this place of peace and self-awareness. So if you feel stuck at work, or anywhere, like even in your own space, things that you want to do, marriage wise. Creativity flows when we are creating a place of peace and self-awareness. So those are the 3 reasons why me time is so important. Now, what are the things that, whoever's listening, what are the things that keep you from intentionally setting aside this time? For me, I don't intentionally think about it. That might be probably my top reason, because I'm sure I make time for what I can make time for, right? But I don't always intentionally think I need some me time until I don't have a choice, until my body's like, girl, listen, my body and my mind, I'm snapping on everybody. Okay, that's when I might think to myself, oh, yo, you doing the most. You might need some me time. But how do we what are some things that keep us from intentionally setting aside me time? The first thing is those Superwoman ideals. The thought that I have to be there for everyone, everybody, all the time, at everything. That is not true. It's a myth. Throw it away, all the way in the trash. Tara said, being a single mom and doing it all on my own leaves very little or no time for anything else. Okay. True. But I'm wondering, is there time in that where you can create spaces for yourself? That first reason I had written down was Superwoman ideals, the idea that I have to be mom. I have to be everything to my kids. I have to show up like 150,000% because of all these things, and I'm not showing up for myself. The second thing I wrote down was we don't deserve it. The mindset that we don't deserve it and we haven't done enough to earn the time, right? So what I mean when I say that is, it's not like we think in our minds like, oh, I don't deserve this free time, so I'm not going to spend the time to myself. I mean, we don't give ourselves permission. That is true, Macy. She said, I think we do it as reaction to challenges rather than proactive self-care. Let me pause what I was about to say. I was thinking today at work, I have this posted on my computer, and I was talking about, work, but I wrote on it, how do we get past a symptom mindset, like a symptom-based mindset, and get into a space where we are being proactive, like she said, being proactive and preventative. Yes. How do we move from a mindset of symptom-based into a mindset where we are being proactive and preventative? So right now, we usually operate in a mindset of symptoms. Once I start feeling symptoms, I react. I start trying to get by myself. I start trying to see if I need to sell. I start telling a friend, let me pull you in because I can't handle this anymore. Instead of being proactive or creating a space where we are making sure we don't get to that point. So thank you, Misa, for that. That's definitely one of the challenges that keeps us from intentionally setting aside this time, that we don't deserve Superwoman ideals. We are reactive instead of proactive. The thought that we don't deserve the time, like I want to, but I really probably should clean up. I probably should read this book with my child instead. And that's the next one I have is our children. Our children are a huge factor in us not having intentional time set aside for ourselves, because a few things. Guilt. Mommy guilt is the worst. It is the worst, because our children, even without making you feel like that, it's like, dang, I should really be reading that book. They're not going to be little forever. And then you don't do for yourself. And then the next day, oh, I should really go and do this because, she really asked me 2-3 times. Like, we don't give ourselves permission to say, little Jujubee, I'm going to need you to go and read this book alone, honey, because mommy's about to have some time alone. You got to be okay with a sad face every now and then to survive and to save yourself. And if you have young children, now is definitely the time to teach them how to go and have time for themselves. Remember, we're creating generational mental wealth. And the only way to do that is to mirror the things that we want our daughters to do when they grow up. And so I'm going to need a mirror for you how to leave me alone and let me live. Okay? Okay. And then we are all on the same page. So those are some of the things that keep us. Those are, yes, Jujubee. Jujubee need to go on over here and sit down and read this little book over here and leave mommy be. Just for a little bit. They got to learn. So those are the things that keep us from intentionally setting aside this time. So we talked about 2 things tonight. We had the 3 reasons why it's so important, which is spiritual renewal, learn selfish behaviors, and that creativity flows out of a place of peace and self-awareness. The second thing is, what are some things that keep us from intentionally setting aside this time? We had Superwoman ideals being Superwoman ideals being reactive instead of proactive. The thought that we don't deserve the time, and then our children. Those are the things that keep us from setting aside that time. Now, I have a little bit of homework here. So remember earlier in our talk, I asked you to think about that time when you felt the most creative, when you felt relaxed, when you felt inspired, when you felt sexually driven. And I had to put that in there because women are, when you have your mind racing and you just haven't had time to yourself and you just feeling all over the place, it's really hard to get your sexy on. And so I just want you to just throw that in there and think about a time when you felt all of those things. Think about what was going on. And I want you to do this exercise. I want you to write down the last time you felt spiritually, mentally, and physically renewed. You did not pull over. Think about a time when the last time you felt spiritually, mentally, and physically renewed. That's the first thing I want you to do. And I want you to write it down. Write it down in detail because I love a good journal entry. The second thing I want you to do, write down the aspects of this time that made you feel that way. Okay? So first thing, write down the last time you felt spiritually, mentally, and physically renewed. The second thing I want you to do is write down aspects of this time that made you feel that way. And then the last part of this is write down how you can implement those aspects into daily living. All right? The last thing is write down how you can implement those aspects into daily living. And I want to give you an example. Going to the beach is like speaks to my spirit. I mean, I could be on the beach for 40 minutes and feel like, I just feel renewed. So whenever I go on vacation, before I leave wherever I am, especially if it's at the beach, I take some time and I write down the things about the vacation that made me feel renewed. What are the things that I want to take from that time home? And how can I implement them? Because I don't have a beach in my backyard. And there's not a spa at my job. And I spend about 0 to 6 hours a week alone by myself. So, you know what I'm saying? It's just completely different. So I write down the different aspects of that vacation that I'm going to implement into my daily life. Now, I don't always stick to them. because that's life. Oh, thank you for writing out my homework, teacher. That's life. So, but it's so helpful for me when I write it down and I think about what was it about this time that felt so good, like, especially if I feel good and refreshed. What did I need out of this time? Was it a long time that I needed? Did I sleep, extra time? Did I, journal while I was there? Like, I really sit down and think about what was going on during this time. Or if I'm with my friends, I'll say to myself, man, that felt great. Like, what was it about this? Because when I'm with my friends, I love it. So I'll say, well, what was it that we were talking about that made me feel like I really needed that? What did I get off my chest? So take those things that you can take out of these experiences and see how you can implement them into your daily living. All right. So it feels like I gave a whole lot tonight, but there were 3 reasons why me time was so important. There was why we don't intentionally set aside this time. And Missy put these things out in the messages. Thank you. And then we have... Okay, I'll cash up you, girl. And then we have our self-care exercise, where you're going to write down the last time you felt renewed. Then write down the aspects of that time that made you feel like that. And then I want you to take how you can implement those into daily living every single day. Missy had a great idea to write down, what was I trying? An affirmation or something, a positive thought. And every time, like, you have your mind shifts into the land where you're not trying to shift, you go back and you read your affirmation or your positive thoughts. And I was thinking to myself, I would put this in my calendar so that I could review it during the day when I felt overwhelmed or having negative thoughts and things like that. So that was a great idea. I appreciate you guys for joining me tonight on Let's Talk Tuesday. I was on vacation last week with my brother here, and we had such a great time. So I am happy to be back. I will be posting the blog that goes with tonight's Let's Talk Tuesday. Of course, it'll be here on Saturday. So before next week, Let's Talk Tuesday, I really hope that you guys have done tonight's self-care exercise. And I have a bit of a surprise coming next week that you guys can print out and use just to create your own self-care routines. Once again, my name is Samantha Edu. I am the owner and therapist with Therapy for Ladies. You can find me at www.therapyforladies.com. If you know a lady raising another lady or raising a daughter, which we all know a lady raising a daughter, we're trying to get up to 100 followers. So please like, share with your mama, share with your auntie, share with your cousin, share with your sister, share with your niece, share with all the ladies, okay? So share. I appreciate you. I will see you next week for Let's Talk Tuesday.